Spotlight is proudly sponsored by HEC Media, St. Louis's home for arts, education, and culture.
Setting is the soil in which you grow your characters.
Nostalgia is something that everybody can relate to.
Why games in an art gallery? Art is everywhere.
Today on Spotlight, a history lesson on a dangerous racetrack in South City that used to attract thousands of spectators. Plus, play video games for free in a local art gallery, what curators are hoping visitors will learn. And then, Mercy doctors are the first in state to use pacemakers in a new, more natural way. But first, a highly decorated storyteller creates a hero known as the Fixer. It's Sunday and you're watching the multiple Emmy Award-winning Spotlight.
Reed, Farrell, Coleman. 6 hit series. And Nick Ryan is number 7.
People have called Nick a kind of urban James Bond. He's part Jack Reacher, part Equalizer, but he is also a guy who has a passion for the least amongst us.
And like his creator, Nick Ryan is a Brooklyn boy, a troubled anti-hero who operates outside the law and in the shadows of a city that never sleeps.
It's about the characters. People think about my characters long after they close the book. They talk about them. That's the best part. That's a great feeling.
First book in your new series, so this is like the baby.
For me, and I know you've interviewed a lot of other authors, the first book in a series is always the scariest and the most fun because it's world building. And, you know, that's when you get to play God. And if any author tells you they don't enjoy that, they're lying. Because you're creating the world in which your character is going to operate. I have a friend, Peter Spiegelman, an award-winning author, who always says, setting is the soil in which you grow your characters. So this was me germinating the seeds, planting them in the soil, and seeing what came out. So that's fun.
So tell us about Sleepless City and tell us about Nick Ryan, of course.
This is the book with the most plot I've ever had in a book. He is a cop through and through. But here's the kicker. Nick's father was a cop who testified at a corruption hearing voluntarily. And I don't know if your audience knows about cops, but the son of a rat is a rat. So although Nick is great at his job, he's an outcast at his job. So he's a great undercover cop, and he does 2 tours in Afghanistan, and he comes back from Afghanistan, and there's somebody who needs killing. A serial pedophile and murderer who gets off on a technicality, not giving too much away. And when Nick decides to take the whole justice system into his own hands, he finds out his whole world kind of gets turned on its ear. And he's offered a job to basically be the city's fixer.
One of the things that you can sense about Nick right within these first few pages is that he's at a very tricky place in his life. He's a man who's both very certain of who he is, but also at kind of loose ends.
A character with no blind spots, no foibles, and no vulnerabilities is a boring character. And Nick is that great dichotomy, that great paradox. Like you say, he's always been the guy in the eye of the storm. When the storm is swirling around him, he's calm. And he's always been sure of his own talents. But the world doesn't always cooperate.
So after one of your readers finishes one of your novels, what do you want them to walk away feeling?
Feeling that they should spend more money on more of my books.
That they have to read everything.
They don't have to read it. They just have to buy it. I at my signings, I often say, they make great doorstops. No, I don't, what I want readers to think. I want readers to think about the protagonist. After you ask somebody 2 weeks after they finish a book what the plot is, right? Or if it's a literary novel, a book without a plot, they don't know. It's character, character, character. The thing that carried me this far is a simple phrase. It's the character, stupid.
Reed Farrell Coleman, thank you so much for joining us. It has been so much fun to talk to you.
To find out about the complex plot and cast of characters, watch the full interview at hecmedia.org or wait for the QR code at the end of the show. History Spotlight, brought to you by HEC Media and the Missouri Historical Society.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jody Sowell from the Missouri Historical Society, and this is History Spotlight. In the 1910s and 1920s, board track racing was a popular sport. In August 1912, the St. Louis track was built at the intersection of Grand and Merrimack in South City. Public historian Andrew Kloppe explains why the opening nearly caused a riot.
So in the early 20th century, there was this really popular sport in America that really isn't around today. It was called board track racing. And what it was a form of motorcycle racing where competitors would race their motorcycles around in structures that were called motordromes, which if you've ever seen the Olympics, and the bicycle racing, they're in structures called velodromes, these wooden board tracks that are shaped like bowls and the racers are running around the sides. Motordromes operate the exact same way, but with motorcycle racing. And so cities around the country built motordromes to bring in spectators for these sports. And the cities would compete with each other to say, oh, our track is the fastest, our track is whatever. And St. Louis built their own motordrome track in 1912. And they claimed at the time that it was the steepest motordrome in the nation. The walls were angled at 62.5 degrees. And riders had to maintain a speed of at least 40 miles an hour to be able to go around the track successfully. So St. Louis advertised their track also as the fastest one in the country, the one where riders would have to go the fastest. It really only lasted, 10 or 20 years. It wasn't a long-lived sport, and partially because it was so dangerous for the riders. And in fact, when the Motordrome in St. Louis opened in 1912, the very first race they ran there was an accident, and one of the riders was killed. A local man named Cleve Stillwell was killed in a motorcycle accident. And it created like a sense of pandemonium within the track. A lot of the seats were either on the infield or on the upper part of the track, like above where the motorcycle racers were going. So people had a really close-up view to this really gnarly accident. And people started to panic to the point that they had trouble getting emergency workers in. There was also a crush of people trying to leave the stadium, and they couldn't get out. So the track was closed briefly after this opening to install more safety features, including netting over the top of the track so pieces of the bike wouldn't fly into the stands when there was a wreck. But there was a lot of dangers. Just a week or so after the St. Louis track opened, there was an accident at a motordrome in New Jersey where 6 people were killed. So really, in order to tamp down some of the dangers of board track racing, they started to slow down the bikes. They started to hold time trials instead of competitive races and things like that. And that meant crowds were smaller and smaller because the excitement of the racing just wasn't there. So the sport didn't last very long, and there wasn't a whole lot to do with these stadiums once board track racing was gone. We have photos of balloon launches and stuff at the St. Louis Motordrome, but that's not going to happen that often. It's few and far between. It's not that many spectators. So really, the sport starts to die out, and the track here in St. Louis was torn down in the mid-1920s.
Next week on History Spotlight, the original plans for the arch and why we should be even more thankful for what stands on the riverfront today.
To learn more about the Missouri Historical Society, visit mohistory.org.
HEC Media. Recognized. Celebrated. Honored time and again for excellence in the industry. Find all of the award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
So we're here at the Foundry Art Center. In our main galleries, we currently have Art of the Arcade, which is an exhibition in partnership with Two Plumbers Brewery and Arcade. And it's completely free and open to the public. A question that I've been getting a lot as I've been preparing this exhibition is why games in an art gallery? And the answer is that art is everywhere. A lot of people don't think about it, but several different types of artists worked to create the games, from the gaming cabinets and the actual circuitry to the design of the games themselves, the characters, the background, everything is art. And this exhibition really gives people a chance to not only have fun, play games, but also it lets people appreciate them as the artwork that they are. There's a very in-depth history, and we go into that a little bit with a lot of these games, of how everything came to be and the artistry and the technical skill that was used to create these games. This exhibition is also very accessible. There's no reason to feel intimidated if you have not had a lot of experience with games. I myself haven't even had a ton of experience playing a lot of these arcade games, but you can just come in and play, and there's a little bit of something for everyone. So maybe you're not great at Outrun, but you might be really good at pinball. So there's something for everyone, all ages, all skill levels. It's just a place to come, have fun, and appreciate the artwork that is arcade. So when you first walk in, you'll be hit by tons of cabinet games. So we have Pac-Man in here. We have several very rare cocktail games, such as Joust and Centipede, as well as multicades. We spaced them out in a way where you can really appreciate the sides of the cabinets and the beautiful artwork that went into that. We have a couple of games here from personal collections. So they haven't been out in an arcade and they haven't been beaten up or anything like that. So they're pristine and beautiful. Some of the highlights that you absolutely cannot miss when you come is our custom pinball painter. So it is a pinball machine that we've had retrofitted, and what you can do is put a piece of paper in, ink up some pinballs, and as you're playing the game, the ink dripped balls roll across the paper and create paintings. Then the finished paintings are creating an installation in the gallery, which is really beautiful. So it's another layer of artwork and how it relates to the arcade. Another fan favorite already is our den, and that is an area of the gallery that focuses on home gaming consoles. So we have a plethora of console games from the 70s through the 90s and even some of the early 2000s. And it's open play. So you're welcome to play some Atari, play some original Nintendo, and kind of relive your childhood away. And then another layer of the exhibition is that we have a weekly high scoreboard. So we'll have a featured game of the week, and everyone can come in, play that game. And of course, no arcade is complete without the prize counter. So we have a prize counter set up so that those that win those high scores can pick out a fun little prize at the end of the gallery. As a viewer, what's also really fun about this is how it's interactive art. Art doesn't have to be static, such as a sculpture or a painting. It can be living, breathing, movable, interactive art. So you, as the visitor, are also controlling the art and, in a way, being a part of the artwork as well. Art of the Arcade with Two Plumbers Brewery and Arcade will be open through September 23rd, and you can learn more about it at foundryartcenter.org.
The Bennett Project, later on Spotlight.
Anne Silvestri lives life on the go for work, family, friends, and fitness. She's an avid walker and enjoys her time walking with friends. But one day last summer, she suddenly became winded walking up steps at work.
Doing my walking all the way up the steps, and when I got to the top, I literally almost blacked out.
And she knew something was off.
I waited a while and got myself up, went up on the elevator, and worked the rest of my day.
Having a history of high blood pressure and an at-home monitoring device, Silvestri said she thought it was blood pressure and medication related. Already on the go, the next day, she boarded a flight for work.
Flew to Kansas City for a business meeting and flew home that day. And as I was getting off the plane, again, literally almost passed out and sat down and was like, there is something that's not right with me.
Silvestri's husband drove her to Mercy Hospital, St. Louis, where it was all hands on deck in the ER when she arrived due to her low heart rate.
I think they were very nervous about me with as low as my heart rate was. And then walked in Dr. Wadwani. He did inform me then that we're going to need to be putting a pacemaker in.
Turns out the electrical system of her heart stopped working.
There was a block up here. So the impulse would come here but not go down. So it would not activate the ventricles and they would not squeeze and would not pump blood out.
Silvestri needed a pacemaker. The pacemaker sends impulses to the heart. Dr. Lalit Wadhwani, electrophysiologist with Mercy Clinic Heart and Vascular, offered Silvestri the very latest technology, an upgraded pacemaker. Mercy Hospital St. Louis became the first in the state to offer the new, more natural pacing system.
It is not a new pacemaker per se. It's more of a new pacemaker implant technique. The best part about this pacemaker implant technique is that it mimics a normal physiologic electrical conduction of the heart. So it makes the heart beat normally as it would if the electricity was passing normally through the heart. And one thing that we have always known is that the normal conduction tissue runs in the septum of the heart. Previously, we were implanting leads anywhere in the heart in the right lower chamber without thinking about engaging the normal conduction tissue. It would pace the heart, and that would lead to dysynchronous beating of the heart. This new technology, what we are doing is that we are implanting the lead in the septum deep enough so that we can engage the conduction tissue. It basically propagates electricity as if it was propagating naturally. And that leads to the synchronous contraction of both right and the left ventricle.
Wadhwani says the new way is better for patients who need a pacemaker at work much of the time or all of the time.
The newer pacemaker today works constantly. It's not waiting for the heart not to work.
She was a perfect candidate. She's been using the pacemaker 100% of the time. And similarly, anyone who requires more than 40% pacing in the lower chamber of the heart will definitely benefit from this technology.
The new type of pacing helps patients like Silvestri avoid complications that can be associated with traditional pacing methods.
So that prevents any future weakness of the heart muscle, which would be caused because of dysynchronous contraction.
Silvestri knows she's lucky.
I kind of feel like my old self again. For me, the biggest takeaway is that I hope I've learned to be a better listener to my body and immediately address it. You know, I have a lot more life that I want to live.
It's very exciting. The entire field is very excited about this new technology.
Mark your calendars for the 2023 St. Louis Art Fair, taking place September 8th through the 10th. Get to know the artists and their art before heading out to the fair with HEC Media's Meet the Artist series at youtube.com/meettheartists.
Hey, my name is Greg Turco. I'm a photographer and a digital artist. And my work is typically made by piecing together multiple photographs to create one final piece. The majority of what I do, if you had to boil it down to one word, would be nostalgia. Everything, regardless of whether it's my buildings that I photograph or old records or books, starts off with nostalgia in mind. I've noticed over the years that typically nostalgia is something that everybody can relate to. So for me, it's a good jumping off point. I like to explore that realm with my photography. As I'm working with multiple photographs, I tend to lay one on top of the other in Photoshop, and I decide at that point whether or not that particular layer works for me, and I can have different ways of adjusting it to see if one will work better than the other. But basically what I'm looking for in the end is an appealing image that interests me and also, of course, interests the viewers. Typically what I like to show the viewers at a show like the St. Louis Art Fair is what's interesting to my mind. I see all these buildings and the other media and things that I photograph, and for me, it brings me back to a time of my childhood when I enjoyed listening to records or tapes, or even the ideas like of exploring old buildings and stuff like that, and the narrative stories that are inherent to those buildings. I hope when you come to the St. Louis Art Fair that we can look through a few albums and enjoy ourselves talking about the days past and maybe you'll find some art to bring home with you.
Hi, I'm Gloria McRoberts. I live right outside Nashville, Tennessee, in a small town, Watertown, Tennessee, and that's where I do my sculptural weaving. The material that I use for my work is wool, and it's mostly sheep, goat, and alpaca. And I like to use natural wool. It's not dyed, because I know that will hold up for so long. So I get huge amounts of wool from Europe. But we do have farmers around with sheep, and they do process their own wool sometimes. So I love to buy local farmer processed wool when I can. My subject matter, because I like to use natural material, natural wools, I want to do natural subjects. Generally, I do landscapes and I do trees, all kinds of trees. Behind me right now, I have a large landscape. It's 5.5 feet by 5.5 feet. And I made this, I finished it. I've been working on it for many months. And I wanted to finish it for the St. Louis Art Fair. I like to work large. Some people need large pieces. Over many years, I've developed techniques, original concepts. It's all my idea of how to do it my way. I am really looking forward to participating this year in the St. Louis Art Fair. I would not be there if it was not for my husband, because setting up for the art show is quite an accomplishment for us. And so we're happy to be there. And I have found that in Missouri, the public is very art aware, they're educated on art, and I love talking to the public and explaining what I do, because I know I'm different. And as far as I know, there's nobody else doing what I do. So I hope to see you at the art fair in St. Louis so I can explain to you all about what I'm doing.
HEC Media, supporting and promoting the arts. Check out our features and shows on theater, dance, music, the visual arts, and more. Find this and all our award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
Round and round, round and round, wheels on the bus go round and round.
Emily Dial, the founder of the Bennett Project, knows the devastation families face when a child is diagnosed with cancer.
We lost Ben in 2003. He was 10 years old. And we did a lot of fundraising after we lost Ben. That was our therapy to get through things. And Emily's kind of grown up with that. She was about 12 years old when we lost Ben. And she's just taken it and run with it. And she knows as a sibling what it's like to experience, the terrible devastation of cancer. And this is something that, you're living your life, and then all of a sudden, it's just an abrupt 90-degree change.
We were told that there was a lesion. It could very likely be retinoblastoma. At the time, we didn't know what that was. We got her in immediately, do a quick eye exam, to which they saw that she did have some tumors. She went under anesthesia for them to take a look closer at the tumors that she had in her eyes and diagnose a retinoblastoma and create a treatment plan, to which we started chemo and all kinds of things after that.
I mean, the things you thought were important are no longer important. So that's why Emily's here to help the families just a little bit of normalcy.
It's been over 4 years now, and the Bennett Project is still going. And unfortunately, we're increasing the number of families that are registered with us. We never like to get the referrals, but we have over 200 families registered with the Bennett Project right now. And we are a nonprofit that is volunteer-based. So all the volunteers, all the board, it's 100% volunteer-based. So everything that we receive goes directly to the families we support.
My nephew was diagnosed with pediatric brain cancer in 2019. And after he recovered from his first surgery and radiation, I was looking for a way to give back to organizations that serve families like ours, and saw a post on Facebook that the Bennett Project was looking for someone to help with some financials and things like that. And that is what I do in my real life. And so this seemed like a perfect fit to find a way to give back to a small not-for-profit that helped families like ours.
The Bennett Project strives to benefit the whole family through their special events.
First and foremost, we really love their Christmas project that they have, where they have families come in, they bring Santa, they have gifts. You pick out a certain number of gifts per child, but ultimately they can come meet Santa, write down their Christmas list, eat cookies, and there's a story time piece to it. And so she really enjoyed coming to that, even though she's not necessarily the child that's been diagnosed with cancer. She gets to be a super sibling, as they call it, with the Bennett Project. They each receive a gift card during each one's birthday month, so neither feel left out.
So the siblings are included in everything we do, including the quarterly family events. Their whole families are invited to that. It's just a time for the families to socialize and interact with each other and kind of, bounce off ideas of what's been going on through treatment with each other.
Well, it's just good for families that are going through the same thing. They can relate to each other. They don't have to worry about putting on a front for others.
Along with fun activities for the families, the Bennett Project also provides support for families struggling financially.
We do the extracurricular activity grants, so the families can apply for a grant in the spring and fall semester. We provide the grants for different sports. They can use it for dance or swim lessons, whichever gets them out going, kind of like a form of therapy in our opinion. So when we first began, we started with 1 to 2 families a month with financial aid and at $200. Now we do about 8 families a month at $300. So that goes to, they can use it for groceries if they need to. They can use it for utilities, whichever benefits them the most. My son Owen is almost 9, and if you ask him to this day, he will still say that he started the Bennett Project and he runs everything day to day. But we started the Bennett Project with giving toys at the hospitals during Christmas. And he started the Bennett Project because of the importance of giving back to others in memory of Ben. So even though he never got the chance to meet Ben, he knows everything about what we went through and how important it is to help the other kids. The Bennett Project has given me many opportunities, not only within our community, meeting new people and interacting with them, meeting these families that I would have never met. Some of these families are my best friends now, just because what makes us a little different is we like to check on our families really often. We like to see how they're doing, if they need anything, so that way we can be there for them at all times.
Doggy ball.
Next week, how Mizzou is helping the hardwood barrel shortage and why the spirits industry loves to use them. Plus, the original plan for the arch and why we should be thankful for what it looks like now. And to watch the full interview of Sleepless City from earlier in the show, scan this QR code. Thanks for watching Spotlight. Join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.